ABBA 5. Testimonials, Questions and Answers. December 8, 2018. Beloved Abbas, let us resound together in the one heart. Let us install the being and the non-being in the heart of our human being. Silence. Beloved, we pass through your word and my word, we enter into this resonance, we enter into Agape. So, beloved, first of all, allow me to express to you your word to which my word will respond to perform the miracle of one thing only. Whoever wishes to express himself should do so now with complete freedom, because what he is leaving you at this moment is not for you, nor for me, but for the one heart of the Abbas that wants to express what it feels and lives since we met, in this place. Come and liberate yourself by liberating your word. Be sincere and spontaneous, the time has come to discover yourself, to reveal yourself, to share and to receive communion in the truth of Agape. Who wants to express themselves? We have a person. Participant. I would like to say that, indeed, I had questions, but everything is resolved, everything was answered automatically. How do you feel? Participant. I feel that there is only one word, Agape, immense love or immense heart, something like that. Do you have any perception or vision, or does it appear naked in your consciousness? Participant. In fact, there is one thing that happened, because when we started, there is a side, like a sense of humor, something funny that happened. There were two images that appeared to me, an image of a blue being and I said to him, I also absorb you, and I started to laugh. Now I really want to laugh because I am someone, in general, who is very scared. That's it, that's what I wanted to share. We thank you. We have always said up to now, love or fear, and today you see yourselves. In Agape, there is laughter, and that, whatever the fears you had in the previous moment, they are dissolved by your laughter, your joy and your peace. You have nothing to catch, you have nothing to eliminate, you only have to see and experience this laughter, and then for you, everything is achieved as you say. Love covers everything, giving you to live the effect of love, and, above all, it commits you, independently of any will, to be what you have always been, before consciousness, Agape. All this will end for the whole collective of humanity with a great laugh. Let laughter take you to the heart of being, where non-being takes place. It is a relaxation, a relief, live this. We thank you in the one heart, for transcending the ultimate resistance or reticence of who you are. Beloved ones, let us continue. Translator. We have one more person coming. Participant. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to put it in words. Try it, the words come alone, it is not you who is capable, it is Agape who expresses itself, and you, spontaneously leaves what comes out and do not worry about the words. Participant. As for yesterday's session, I had asked for the neck, the throat and the forehead. You mean the heart resonance that happened last night? Participant. Absolutely, because my mind was very active, so little by little I felt that things were free in the throat, in the nose, how everything was unraveled, and little by little I felt like an inner wave, and I felt that this movement was created from the abdomen to the head, a movement that did not stop, that was very soft, that allowed everything to harmonize in the body, and I only felt peace. And in fact, after a while, when I was looking at my body, I realized that at the throat level, I felt like I had a blister, and then I felt a lot of peace that I have always felt since last night, so I feel very, very good, and I really don't want to wake up. But now you're awake. It will never disappear, it is your magnificent human nature, making you the son or daughter of man, the true man, carrying Agape. The true man, who has united his humanity with the self and the non-being, from whence springs this ineffable peace that can only grow, from now on, day by day, as well as hour by hour. So I embrace you in what you have always been, Agape. The resonance capacity of all hearts and of all eyes that listen to us and will listen to us, creates by resonance to countless brothers and sisters here and elsewhere, the same reality for all, because it cannot be otherwise. We are one in the other, and this is the perfect demonstration of it. I thank you for what you say, and especially for what you experience, and we can only thank you for the beauty that you are. May peace, love, joy and truth be your only abode. Do you have anything else to add? Participant: thank you and thank you. Thank you for what you are, which is but what I am, Agape. You have noticed that by expressing what is being experienced here, at this very moment, or during the resonance of last night's heart, it is a stimulus for each one of our brothers and sisters, who are there and who receive us. We embrace the next brother or sister if you are finished. Someone else is coming in. Thank you. Participant: I will try to see how I can express myself. Let it come. Participant: what happened was that yesterday I asked someone to look at my palate, because I had a very important pathology, and that's why I made that request. What I started to feel at night was a tingling in the gums, then in the palate, like little tucks. It looks a bit like the sensation I had already experienced with the crystal protocols. So, at one point in the treatment, I don't know exactly when, I felt as if I had a cut in the palate, this sensation, and a little later when I looked at it, touching my palate with my tongue, I could no longer find this cut. I began then, but I don't know exactly when, to have visions, and it is true that in general, I still have my mind. My visions have always disturbed me, they have always deceived me. And so, at that moment I saw it very well, but now I wonder what it was that I experienced and what it was that I saw of myself. This vision was actually of my two children, who had come to this world to wake me up. And then there was a blow with a pretty strong wind, but I realized that yes, it was that, it was very real. This information was not completely new to me, as it is true that in an event with an astrologer in the past, I had already been given this information, and as now my children do not really feel well physically, so I felt very guilty knowing that my children had come for me, while now they do not feel physically well. Also knowing that the relationship between me and my kids is very difficult right now. The eldest daughter is carried away by alcohol and drugs and no longer comes to see me, and the youngest does her job, but has always refused to live a little and has difficulty moving forward. For example, she has tried several times to commit suicide, to create her own bonds of pain with herself. And so, going back a little to the vision, before seeing black holes or black objects, I was always afraid of them because since I was a little girl I had many nightmares related to that. I was afraid of them. I had the impression that I was falling into this black hole. Translator: 7 years ago, she had a dream that also corresponds to what she experienced last night, being on the edge of the precipice holding someone who wanted to jump, and 7 years ago she was actually her daughter, and therefore in relation to the dream 7 years ago, she always felt very guilty, and so she lived it again last night. And this time, compared to the dream of 7 years ago, she realized in last night's vision that this person who was trying to throw herself was her and was another being with a very strong hand holding her, not her daughter as she was 7 years ago. Participant: all this vision and these previous dreams produced pressure and pain in my chest, while with last night's care, as I reviewed and lived through all this, I realized that this pain, this point in my chest, has cleared completely, released, and now I feel much more relaxed. Let me just give you a piece of advice, not a piece of advice, but suggest that you do it. This resonance of the heart with a precise action and intention, which has been achieved for each of you, and, as you will see this evening for yourselves, we all have the same opportunity. Therefore, it is enough that, in relation to what you call your children and that you are their mother, there also, ask nothing else than to establish in an instant, with each one, the resonance of the heart in Agape. And very soon, in the immediacy of what you will achieve, you will put an end to your suffering, as well as theirs. You do not need to ask them, you do not need to have their agreement, because they are already in you. All you have to do is place yourself in the heart of the heart, whether you feel it or not, and resonate, Ask for Agape between your heart and the heart of your child. Then he will join you in the peace of your new heart, and he will also be in Agape. This is accessible to all. Once again, don't believe me, because it is incredible. And yet, as you live it, the evidence spreads into your experience as well as into the experience of each of you when you resonate with Agape. I can only advise everyone to live this, to free themselves from one another, so that in the heart of the one, all awaken. There is no obstacle, whatever your doubts, whatever your questions, whatever your attachments, whatever your roles or functions in this world, you are going through all of this. This is done naturally, spontaneously, as soon as you resonate living Agape, inducing in the other the same Agape, without difficulty and effort, without technique, without seeking anything. This was long ago called consolation. This is active in the moment, because Agape does not suffer any delay. Agape knows neither time, nor space, nor history, whatever the story in which you feel inserted in the responsibility or pain you have felt. The lightness that you describe, new, in the middle of your chest, shows you the truth, not of what I say, but of what you live. You can do it at any time, there is no need for any preparation, because from the moment you have lived, whatever the intensity, what you just described last night, well, the other resonates in this in an equally natural and spontaneous. There is nothing simpler than Agape, there is nothing simpler than joy, because it is our nature now, even within this world, whatever happens there. Don't oppose your son or daughter, don't try to lecture them, don't try to bring them back by a straight path, just resonate with Agape and that's enough. The test will be the increase of your peace, and something new will appear in them, and it will give you to see what is happening with your own children, because then you will pass from filial or family love, to Agape love, which is the solution. I can only commit each of you, depending on where you are, to apply the same without questioning, simply by doing it spontaneously, as you have just said. This peace can only grow in spite of everything that may happen. Agape will never disappear and will install you in this beatitude that follows the peace of the small and will accompany you until your last breath, and will survive beyond your identity. Then, you will be awake, you have simply forgotten, through the game of life and form, through the game of blood ties and affection, which masked you. From now on, you can no longer be abused or deceived by your own visions, by your own thoughts, which will put an end to your last conditioning, to the last reflections of the one who is separated. And the smile will illuminate your eyes, your heart and your lips. Do you want to tell us something else? Participant: no, that's enough, thank you. Thank you for letting what I was supposed to speak. Your heart should be even lighter than before you started talking. You will see it in the moment, and in the moments that follow, it cannot fail. We thank you for expressing it. Translator: she thanks you. Silence. Let's continue. Participant: I have had the experience, for quite some time, of being able to live peace in a certain way, of being able to live life in a much simpler way, much more open. And in the same way, because it happened, in a normal way, without knowing why, this inner peace began to come out, little by little, without me noticing. And right now, what's happening, I feel like I'm going backwards and having trouble finding the state of peace. Before, I felt this peace in my heart and the mind was much calmer, while now the mind is much more agitated. During the time I was here, during the retreat, several times I had the feeling of wanting to leave the place, although I also had states of peace and happiness, but they were not compared with what I felt a few years ago. There is nothing more to add, it is my present state. I am simply telling you one thing, as you yourself have expressed it, in a clear way. You see your own mind, this places you in a fixed way within the observer. But relying on the point of reference, as he says, lived a few years ago, and therefore with a fictitious point of comparison, it is not his mind that blocks it, nor his story, since he sees it, but only this need to compare or try to relive this past experience. What is being proposed to you today is not an experience, but, I would say, a lasting state, and you have expressed this very well through what you have just said, this type of oscillation between the need to leave and the fact that you have stayed. All this is decanted, all this is seen and lived and expressed. And having said this, if you accept that nothing can take you to the past and that the present instant cannot be judged in relation to what you have experienced and what has happened, then you make yourself available to evidence and truth. Be still, you see, your mind cannot bother you, there is just before you this useless point of comparison with what was experienced a few years ago. The need to compare, judge, and measure will disappear by itself, exposing them and making them fully available to experience this effortlessly. Keep observing and you will see very quickly, and you will ask yourself the question, but if I see my mind, if I see this need to flee or this need to remain, then Agape will be there. Have you understood? Participant, I think so, yes. Then, remaining joy. All this belongs to what is dead, but you are alive no matter what your mind tells you, no matter what your residual fears are. In a very short time you will laugh at yourself, when you will understand by living it totally, that you have not lost anything and that it has simply served to create the present instant that we are living in this very instant. The resonance of the heart that I made last night, as I told you, for us that we are here, and in fact for anyone who has the opportunity to listen to what I say, if you put yourself in Agape, if you accept what has been and what is no longer, you will laugh at yourself, effortlessly, and thus recover all that you are. You have nothing else to do, just be there and embrace, and resonate. I thank you for your words, because they show us today that whatever the immediate result of your resonance and your presence here, whatever the positioning and your feeling of the moment, inevitably led to Agape. I would ask you to come back tomorrow and tell us what happened between the moment you just expressed it and the moment we will be there tomorrow. Do you have anything else to add? Participant: no, thank you. I ask, if you wish, those of you who yesterday asked, during the resonance of the heart, simply to be in the perpetual Agape, to come and tell us. So I appeal to the one who placed herself in the perpetual Agape, to come and try to make coherent phrases, not for you, nor for me, but because in the perpetual Agape, you will see the effect that you will unleash. Great laughter, including ABBA. We try to listen to you with laughter. Laughter all over the room continuously. Be very careful. If in resonance with the heart, a brother or sister asks you for the perpetual Agape, we do not provide any after-sales service. So we listen to you religiously. Participant: I mean, there's nothing left in my head. Wait, it will come. But whatever comes out speaks for itself. Tell us how you are. Participant: I am an explosion of joy, laughs. Watch out for flying pieces. Participant: but I am happy to testify for all those who still have doubts and for all those who believe that this is not possible for them in a small place of their head. Because I was the great specialist in anger and guilt, I did all the therapies that exist and it didn't work at all, and, little by little, everything melted, naturally. All I could do was say yes to everything and stop trying to change myself or others. And everything was done little by little, but today it is possible very quickly. In these days, I was in a state of tranquility and emptiness, as if I was sleeping, and since yesterday's care, I have become an explosion of joy. I have no other word, and I have the impression that I can press the button and it makes me laugh, 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 and that if I do not press the button of laughter, there is love, 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 the love that is there. And this morning, during what we did, laughs, that's it, the heart-to-heart connection. During the resonance, I saw all the hearts filling the air, and the air became love, and we were like a big bottle, fish inside each one, bathing in love. I prefer the term perpetual love bath to jar, a jar that is a little confined. But that's it, of course. However, I would like to point out to the listeners that they've noticed the resonance of the heart this morning between you and that I was not there. And so you demonstrate, through this morning's experience, that each of you has exactly the same potential, the same truth in him, because he only wants to share the heart of each one. Keep going. Participant: I wanted to say that above all, it happens by itself, and that this does not prevent me from having emotions. For example, when I see the videos of violence, I see that my heart is moved, but my heart is transformed directly. Fortunately, it is. You're human. Translator. Your heart transforms everything. That's right, that's right. That's exactly how you experience it, it's the only truth. How do you feel now? Participant. Calm down. Thank you very much. You can observe here, as among the listeners, that whatever the word and experience lived in relation to these resonances, whether it is still seen in some form of suffering, whether in great joy, or simply in peace, the result is always the same. By listening to and embracing every word you say, we become more and more transparent, more and more embraced, more and more true. Do you have anything else to add? Participant. No, thanks to you. Then we can continue. Translator. A participant would like to testify about this child who was born today. Excuse me. Translator. Italian. Sorry, I thought we were pregnant. Laughs. So we listened to the talking child. Participant. A few moments ago, before started, I retired to rest for about 20 minutes. And I put myself in the heart of the heart for those 20 minutes. There were many dreams that came back, but dreams that I had already had in the past and that I didn't even remember. I felt this child again at the height of my stomach, and that moved into my stomach, and what came to me at the height of my mind. But stop, shut up, and I heard noises, sounds that were completely different from the sound that the intestines, for example, can make, were sounds that had nothing to do with that. It was the boy sucking his thumb. Participant. Because it was weird for me, I'm not someone who visualizes in general, absolutely nothing, and even that in general, visions even scare me. Another part of the dream, if I can tell, when I was lying down where I was told, but feed the child, give it to him, and I said to myself, but I don't have a child, what child are you talking about? And so, I met this child, with a big smile, I had him in my arms, so I took the breast to give him. But I thought to myself, but what am I going to feed him? And so, in fact, this scene is repeated, to see again this thirsty child, that I have to carry to my chest, and suddenly I say to myself, no, but I forget, my own son. We continue within these 20 minutes. I look at myself and see my stomach again, and tell myself, but it is not possible, I am pregnant. But in fact, I realized that I had just gained weight. In fact, this is a testimony because I've had it inside for a long time, so last night I understood that I really wanted to have a child, and I thought I understood. Well, it's like this scene is happening again. I experienced it and I wanted to share it because I really felt that during those 20 minutes that I was lying down, it was really something real, physical. Okay. That's all I wanted to share as a testimony. Beloveds, no matter the experience, how do you feel? Participant. Very, very well, after birth. Try not to get pregnant again right away. Participant. Okay, thank you. We thank you. Translator. We have another person. With pleasure. Participant. I would like to know how we should live all the events that are currently happening in France. They leave France, but this concerns the whole of humanity. It is the call to freedom, to autonomy. Of course, from a purely visual point of view, this can be called a kind of universal revolution. But whatever the appearance and harshness of the images, as our sister expressed it in Perpetual Agape, it is through the pain and suffering of these images, no matter what your emotions tell you in the moment, that Agape is revealed. I cannot give you any technique, if it is not. If it bothers you too much, take refuge in yourself. But in this case, the images you observe and will observe, whatever the initial harshness and suffering, are naturally transmuted, not by will to send love, to help or to cushion the shock of what is happening, but on the contrary, by embracing. Embracing here does not mean that there is a kind of morbid satisfaction or even rejoicing, but it is like that, going through what life proposes to you, on the screen of this world on a social level, as on the level of the elements in action, for you to understand that all this is just theatre, and even the most justified suffering in the face of it inevitably leads you to agape, because it is natural and because the moment of agape has arrived, and so has the eternity of agape, and that no matter what happens, in you or on the screen of the world, agape will always be there. You will recognize yourself in this. That's what I can answer, and here again, I can only advise you to check it yourself. It is by living it that you understand it. And this is only the beginning. So, the simple glance you give to events in themselves, in the scene of the simulation, wherever you are, look within yourself, that is, if it is intolerable to you, then, in some cases, by isolating yourself from it, you will find that agape is there. This process is natural and spontaneous, there is no need for any effort or technique. It is about immediate experience and understanding, which does not require reflection or mental understanding. It is the experience that creates true understanding. I said it again earlier and this morning, whatever the puppets do, to use the commander expression, decide what they decide and do what they do, believing that they control events, they are only consumed in the fire of love and truth, although this fire has to pass through simulation and extreme violence within the simulation. For no matter how much you may suffer when you see these images, sometimes they lead you not to want to look at them and end to them. In your heart, the result will always be the same, agape. It is the moment in which you embrace, the suffering cannot last and has shown you as a passing illusion. Agape cannot fail, the puppets play their last scene, you are the observer or you have already left the puppet theatre, there is no difference. The theatre and the puppets will be consumed as well as the observer and as the one who saw that this theatre did not exist. And all this is achieved with joy, I would say, whatever the suffering and harshness of the images, or of your own emotions in relation to these images. What I mean by this is that, today, suffering, illness and fear led you to the same joy, to the same agape. Many of you live it, you see it every day, it is only a matter of time, you will tell me, but it is happening now. So there is no technique or advice on this, but simply acceptance. Accepting here is not taken in the sense of participating or agreeing to anything, but it is much more the acceptance of what happens on the screen that ends with the scream. Everything is perfectly organized, not by the puppets, although they still create it, but by the intelligence of the light. If this does not seem to you yet, agape will convince you, and this is not in 6 months, this is also now. But let us not forget that we still have countless brothers and sisters, who still participate in the puppet theatre, only express the thirst for freedom and the need for autonomy. This confrontation is not a tragedy, despite all appearances and sufferings. This is only the final scene of the burning in agape, no longer individually, but collectively. It has no one to convince, it has no one to save, it has no one to prevent, respecting the freedom of everyone to believe that they are playing this or that role, because even the most important role today will burn itself out. Hence the great burst of laughter, which is behind all these images and behind these apparent wars and violence, because fear no longer feeds anyone, even if you experience it, agape prevails over everything. Everything you are living now, whether on the screen of the world or in your own life, in your sufferings or in what comes to you, there will always be the same result, agape. Nor is it necessary for you to believe me, or follow anyone, because you're at the same time the actor, the observer, the scriptwriter and the director who, I remember you, existed from the moment of creation. It will end in great laughter, in a fire of love, in a celebration of agape by the collective of humanity, at the time of the event. No one will be able to escape from it and, in fact, who would have the idea, or the simple idea of escaping from it, and I think our sister in perpetual agape can confirm this for us. Whatever you do, whatever you don't do, IDADE had already said it, I have used this phrase many times, and I allow myself to return it to you. whatever must happen, whatever you do will happen, whatever must not happen, will not happen. And they will be shown that there is no choice but to have freedom. No free will can oppose it, no story can distract you from it. Do you have anything to add? Participant: yes, there is. Is there anything else that the intelligence of the light has prepared, that we too must accept? No, live your life, live what life gives you to live, goes through what you have to go through, whether happy or difficult, because that is exactly what you have to go through to be free, and to be Agape. There is nothing to prepare, nothing to protect yourself from. Everyone will quickly notice that the phrase "I have accepted" is the only possible proof. Remember that creation and uncreation take place, if I may say so, at the initial moment of the first consciousness. Everything was written, long before creation. Everything is perfect, in whatever form it may seem. So be as simple as possible, do what life allows you to do, take care of nothing but being fully present to yourself, and be lucid at all times. This is done by itself, as soon as you accept to be the witness and the observer, without even having to refute anything from now on, because the simulacrum and the sacred are just two sides of the same coin, as you say, and the more you relax and accept, the more you accept, the more you accept, the less you need to understand, because you're understanding, and the less you will question yourself. And, in fact, they will find it increasingly obvious and clearer. I repeat, everything is done automatically as soon as even the unacceptable is accepted. It would not have worked just a year ago, but the adamantine particles have covered the earth, all the bodies of eternity are now on earth. You can see this just by looking at some images of the sun, taken by your telescopes, and then you will understand, through these images, that the sun has opened. What is called a coronal hole shows the collapse of our sun into a red giant, as Sereti had announced, even before the celestial weddings. What might have looked like a utopia or alive 10 or 12 years ago is taking place before your eyes. Likewise, the commander, in his pedagogical aspect, even before the celestial weddings, had detailed all the processes that are taking place at this very moment, at all levels. But in fact the commander shook his carrot before his eyes, because this pedagogical strategy is the only one that can get you out of your lethargy of love. You have awakened, you have discovered freedom, and you have rediscovered what, in fact, has always been there, and what was waiting for you. As I told you this morning, we're the ones who were waiting, it cannot be otherwise. The intelligence of light and life takes charge of your life from the moment you accept, from the moment you embrace. At that moment, what seemed insurmountable, difficult to overcome, or impossible to resolve, is resolved alone. Silence. Do you have anything to add? Participant: no, thanks to you. Silence. Then we can continue. Participant: yes, I wanted to add something to my previous testimony. Translator: it is the person who is in perpetual agape who would like to add something to her previous testimony. Then we will listen to you. Participant: it is that, the feeling that appears is really to have found what I am, and that although joy, at times, is completely explosive, it is also implosive, it alternates. You're right, and precisely, whatever your spiritual position, whatever your beliefs or adhesions, whatever your visions or feelings are, only Agape remains, and it is Agape that awakens you and takes you out of the screen of the world. You're free, it is not an empty word, you have become Christ, and everything you see, and everything you love, is transformed by Agape. This also explains why, in the same physical care of yesterday's hard resonance, many of you have seen a direct resolution, in the depths of your fleshly body, by the illumination of light. This can only encourage you to celebrate Agape, spontaneous and natural, in some way, with any look, with any relationship, with any problem. Love covers everything. The commander has explained it to you, and you are countless in verifying it every day with more and more intensity and more certainty. Silence. Do you have anything else to add? Participant. There I felt that I had gathered heaven and earth, that I was living in my body of flesh what I am from all eternity, what we are from all eternity. It is another way of expressing the three in one, because it is within my humanity that I receive in my heart matter as spirit, heaven as earth, good as evil, transmuted by the only force of the universe, love, Agape. Some will express it through their inner feelings, others will do it through vibratory manifestations essentially at the level of the sacrum and the heart, and the head, or the feet. Some will express it and live it through visions, some will approach it reacting to images of violence or internal images. Everything that is lived, without exception, in any situation, inevitably leads to Agape. You will often hear this word, because it cannot be falsified or inverted, except by the puppets, who call their meals Agape. The Agape is not to eat matter, the Agape is exactly what you have just said, to embrace heaven and earth into its humanity, to gather the three in one, so that the will, not yours, Father, let your will be done, is the only will of ABBA, and love, Agape. As you say, what you find is nothing but yourself, and it is a joy that cannot be compared to anything, and a peace that has nothing to do with your state of mind, your alignment or your satisfaction with life. This is freedom, freedom that is not disguised. Freedom does not need a framework, even here in this world, from now on. And this is what humanity as a collective has just achieved this year. And that is the apocalypse, what is played in the simulacrum and that only accompanies, contrary to what the puppets think, the revelation of truth. For who can resist love, this Agape love? So that those who have forgotten, as well as those who have forgotten it before you and who have forced you to forget it, I repeat once again, everything was already written before creation. Whatever the ways to achieve it, whatever the images, whatever their position, it is Agape for each and everyone in Agape. For those who do not yet live it, do not worry because all the brothers and sisters who live Agape feed everyone on the planet, pushing them into truth, despite any conscious action and any will. This is what is happening everywhere. There is no longer any influence by fear, so it signals the end of suffering, the end of the illusion of being born and die, the end of identification with the body or with this world, the end of the need for a body or a dimension, what I have called the end of the dream. There is only one kingdom that is prior to consciousness, what you are doing at this moment, even and especially if it seems eccentric to you, the information of time zero has passed through you, without your knowing of your own free will. Because it is unavoidable. It is in this sense that I said that whatever you do or whatever opposition you put up, whatever epitaph you put on ABBA, whatever label you put on them, has no effect and you only reinforce the manifestation of Agape. And the more they oppose it, the more they consume their own illusions. There is no other way out than Agape. All will pass through the edge of the sword, some have already experienced it, it is the sword of truth, of the new Eucharist, as well as Agape. And the best weapon you have is to embrace, which allows Agape to cover everything. Everything else is just a distraction, everything else is just an occupation of the time that seems to have remained. I cannot be more clear, I am not asking you to join or follow me, I have nothing else to give but Agape. Because everything else is happening and the hour of truth has come. Everything is in place, as all the prophets of all times and origins have declared, and everything is happening right now. Do not worry about the collective event, because in this case you're the event. Agape is the event, whatever the circumstances of Mary's call, ecstasy or really the final planetary grid. More and more of you will experience it and live it every day, in every imaginable and unimaginable way, because you cannot change anything, because that is exactly where you need to be, even if it seems horrible to you. It's about the person, it's about the story, but you're not worried. You come out of the dream, through liveness, joy and peace, Agape is the proof, Agape is the certainty. Do you have anything else to add? So maybe we'll take the last question before we take a break. Participant. It is a testimony of the work that was done last night. We listen and embrace him or she, especially. Participant. I asked for treatment and work on my digestive system, lungs and heart. Just that. Participant. I began to feel a lot of movement in my stomach, especially in my gallbladder, in my side, and then I felt the heartbeat but in my mouth, in my stomach, in my center, and then I had to breathe a little deeper, and then I felt a little more liberated, more relaxed, and the jaw began to move, in the same way because I had already had this experience when a person put the crystals in me. And so, I got carried away. I didn't ask myself any questions or anything, and then, this morning, when I called my father, who is 92 years old, I realized at that moment, that what I had in my jaw was a lot of anger that had been contained, at least since my childhood. And so, from adolescence onwards, I connected everything, all that anger, with my father. And now, for some years now, I've been living with my father, and, since that moment, my father has changed, and now he's been transformed, and the relationship I have with my father is very funny, very light. And now it's just the opposite, so it's me who gets serious in front of my father, whereas before was him who was serious in front of me. So I realized that my father was in Agape. And today, for example, he has to have heart surgery, and he said to me, "Listen, tell Jean-Luc that he can take a few years away from me." How could I decide that? But he is fortunate, because he is registered, not the additional years, but in total Agape showing himself, to the return of his operation. Translator. I was wrong. In fact, he doesn't have an operation, he is very healthy, and you asked, through this testimony, in just. So I asked Jean-Luc to leave me for a few years, so that I can actually rejuvenate, but he wasn't having an operation at all, it was actually just for fun. NDR. The expressed request, contrary to the proposed interpretation, suggests to eliminate some years of life among those who will come, because health is good in spite of old age, but the father in question does not want this incarnation to last too long. But the fact that you have lived what you are living, in fact, as you said, your father's Agape can only lead to the Agape. What you described in relation to your jaw, regardless of consciousness, is it still there? Participant. Now I feel it weak, relaxed, the jaw. Then, let us thank Agape. In this way you will be able to laugh until death, death being only an incredible imposture. How can what you are die? Agape shows you. Interrupted by translator, participant and room, and then asked to continue. Ha. Ha. I rewind and sighed, I can't find anything. I think it's time to settle down, because Agape takes everything, even my words. Laughs. May peace, joy, love and truth be your dwelling place. In ABBA, Citrad, joy. See you in a moment. Through Jean-Luc Young. The Transformations. French transcript. Agape team. English translation. DeepL.com. Home revised, LMF.